We already know that Regular Show is a cartoon aimed at a young audience, at least according to its official rating. But when you actually sit down and pay attention to it, it's clear that this was barely the case. In several moments, Regular Show could have easily passed as an Adult Swim series, whether because of the suspicious moments, the double entendres, the violence, the weapons, the sheer bizarreness, you name it. There are so many factors that were right on the edge of what was acceptable, and if they had pushed just a little further, things could have gone south. That's why there are so many jokes and situations that went completely over my head when I was a kid, and I only truly understood them when I rewatched the show at an older age. And I'm not just talking about little jokes, I'm also talking about mature and adult themes that I simply wasn't able to grasp back then. Serious topics were addressed by Cartoon Network, and since Quintel always had to keep his work within this supposed boundary to avoid trouble, he had to find creative ways to work around certain limitations. He had to portray important things for the story in a way that still fit within the show's target audience. I think the best example of this is how Regular Show handled alcohol, because, in case you haven't noticed, it was always there. We all know that those classic blue soda cans would have been something completely different if the show belonged to Adult Swim, especially since the characters drink them all the time. They're always present at parties, celebrations, or any kind of fun event, and we all kind of get what they actually represent. But the show never makes it too obvious, at least, not as obvious as another element in the Regular Show universe that doesn't just depict alcohol, but also its effects. And I'm obviously talking about the King of Colin's chicken wings. I really don't know what they put in those things, but it's very clear that the characters always act weird and loose whenever they eat too many of them. They're always around during parties and wild moments in the show, but if there's one character who always overindulged in them and clearly had a problem, it was Benson. Now, let's break this down from the beginning. It's really easy to see that Benson was an extremely unhappy guy. He had a car, his own apartment, and he was the park manager, which obviously meant he made more money than everyone else since he was in a higher position. He had a lot going for him, but looking at the way Benson acted in most episodes, could you really say he was a happy, fulfilled guy, satisfied with his life? Of course not. Quite the opposite, actually. Out of everyone, Benson was the most bitter, sad, and dissatisfied with his life and the choices he made. He constantly showed regret for spending so much time working at the park, yet at the same time, he clung to that job because he felt like it was the only thing he had left. He walked around always anxious, worried, and scared of practically everything, and most of the time, he turned all those negative emotions into anger. The thing is, when you combine all of that with the terrible feeling of not being appreciated by others and the belief that he was a loser, you get a person who was extremely sad, depressed, and closed off. And in several moments, when he found himself in deep sadness, we see him stuffing himself with chicken wings, exactly like someone drowning their sorrows in alcohol. This is shown in the episode where he has to bury that super intelligent suit, in the episode where he loses an award he considered really important to Jean and gets really upset about it, or even in the episode where he was looking for Pan and he thought he would never be able to find her again. And these are just a few examples that come to mind right now. However, Benson didn't overindulge in the wings only when he was feeling depressed. Most of the time, whenever the park crew was celebrating something at the Wing Kingdom, he almost always seemed a bit off, while the other characters were acting completely normal, and it was portrayed exactly as if he were actually drunk. Benson would start getting too close to people, touching them just to say whatever was on his mind, acting way happier than usual, which was very unlike him. You could clearly see on his face that he was completely out of it in these moments, and there's actual evidence supporting this supposed alcoholism. Skips and, if I'm not mistaken, Muscle Man too, have both expressed concern and even advised Benson to go easy on the wings, as if they already knew he had a problem with them and always went overboard. Then there's that one episode where he had to arrive early at work the next day because he had gone a record number of days without being late. He was supposed to receive a watch as a prize for it. But what happened? He ate way too many wings the night before and woke up hungover literally in the middle of the desert without remembering anything that had happened the night before. One interesting point to mention is that most of the time when Benson is in this supposed drunken state, he actually says really positive things to his friends. And you can tell that these words are everything he keeps bottled up inside but can never express when he's sober. He becomes amazing at saying things that that bring everyone together, making them feel like a real team. And almost every time he eats too many wings, he ends up saying these things in a really sincere way, making it clear how much he truly appreciates and values everyone around him, even if it's deep down. I think it's fair to say that Benson with the wings is the purest representation of the boss he wishes he could be when he's sober, but he just can't, because all those negative feelings I mentioned earlier create a mental block that holds him back. However, when he's in this altered state, that block weakens significantly.